everybody, and welcome to the weekly scopes from the 12th to the 18th of October. Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly scopes. If you've heard this before, you can skip, but this is just the intro on how I formulate these astrology weekly readings. I use astrology and my intuition to give you advice how you can practically use the knowledge of the stars and the planets and apply them to your life. So my weekly scopes are all based on GMT time and on Vedic Constellational Astrology. So now I'm just going to explain what Vedic Constellational Astrology is and how it differs from Western astrology. So the precession of the equinox is sort of like something that happens in astronomy and astrology, where the Earth's axis undergoes a slow circular motion over 26,000 years, and basically this means that this motion causes a shift in the position of the equinoxes and also the calculation Vedic and Western astrologies use. So around 2,000 years ago, the tropical and sidereal Vedic astrology signs of astrology were aligned in the same position. So if the sun was in Scorpio in Vedic astrology, it was also in the constellation of Scorpio in Western astrology. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, this has caused a gradual westward sort of like drift of the tropical Western signs. So basically these signs and the Western signs shift 1 degree with every 72 years. So as a result of this ongoing shift, when Western astrology says the sun is in the constellation of Pisces, it's typically in the constellation of Aquarius. Still, this is because the degree, orb and the date for Western and Vedic astrology are 24 degrees, 24 days apart. So in Western astrology, the sun enters the constellation of Pisces around the 19th of February each year, but actually the sun doesn't arrive into the constellation of Pisces until the 13th to the 15th of March each year, and Vedic astrology takes this into account because it's based on the fixed star positions, and Vedic astrologers use sidereal calculations. So as a result, Vedic astrology takes into account the actual positions of the constellations in the sky at any given time, and also considers the precession of the equinox, adjusting for the shift in the position of the equinoxes over time. But in terms of Western astrology follows the tropical zodiac, which is based on the seasons rather than fixed star positions. Western astrologers also do not directly account for the precession of the equinox in their calculations as well, so this results in slightly different calculations and interpretations that are given whether we're using Western astrology or Vedic astrology. So yeah, as I said, Western astrology uses specific dates, so every year, regardless of where the sun actually is at the sky, the sun moves into Pisces around the 19th of February. So yeah, this discrepancy, this misalignment between the tropical zodiac and the actual positions of the constellations has led to a discrepancy between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So I consider the actual where the sun and the moon are and where Mars and Venus are at any given time, and this is how I formulate these sort of like weekly scopes. So yeah, thanks for listening to this, and let's dive into this week's weekly scope. Okay, so now I'm just going to explain what parallels and contra-parallels are in astrology, because I use them in my chart interpretation. So declination in astrology is the measure of how far a celestial body is, such as the sun, whether it's either north or south of the celestial equator, and the celestial equator is an imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator, which us astrologers use in our interpretation. So parallels happen when two planets are on the same declination, either both planets are on the north side or either both planets are on the south side, and this alignment increases the influence of the involved planets. So it's similar to a conjunction aspect, as it amplifies their energy, making the effects of the planets more pronounced. Contra-parallels, on the other hand, happen when two planets are on the same declination, but one is in the north and one is in the south. So this alignment creates tension, which is similar to an opposition aspect, and it can lead to conflict, challenges and inner struggles between the energies of the planets involved. So contra-parallels highlight areas of friction or contrast in our lives, urging us to find balance between the opposing forces at play. When transiting parallels and contra-parallels happen, they can sort of like trigger significant events, shifting consciousness and periods of intense growth and transformation. So I look at these aspects closely during chart analysis to understand how planetary energies interact and influence each other during a specific time frame, to pinpoint key periods for personal development, relationship dynamics or career shifts and other shifts like karmic shifts and stuff like that. Because I just find using contra-parallels and parallels gives me more depth in interpretation, so I use them. So contra-parallels and parallels in astrology serve as markers for potential challenges or breakthroughs, guiding us towards more self-awareness, love, acceptance, understanding, forgiveness for ourselves and others, and shifts in consciousness and growth. So overall, just a shift in our mindset if we allow for it. So parallels and contra-parallels just kind of like provide valuable insights into the complexities and nuances of the astrological interactions between planetary movements. So yeah, that's the end of what contra-parallels and parallels are. So this week we've got a few aspects, just two actually, watching over us, influencing us. That's the word I'm looking for this week. So we've got Mercury making a parallel to Mars. This is exact on the 13th of October at 7:19 p.m. and leaves on the 20th of October at 5:56 p.m. and it enters on the 13th of October. Then we've got Venus making a contra-parallel to Neptune. This is exact at 8:02 a.m. on the 14th of October, entered on the 10th of October and leaves us on the 18th of October. So Venus is in Virgo, Neptune's in Pisces, Mars and Mercury are both in Libra. Yeah. So what's going on this week? So really this week is a contrast between mental care and focus and spiritual surrender. Mercury's parallel to Mars, which works like a conjunction really, is when Mercury, our thinking and communication, is in parallel with Mars, which is our motivation and our assertion, how we go after what we want. We experience a powerful alignment of mental and physical energies. So this week is really good and supports assertive communication, quick thinking, and having a direct approach to solving problems and going about your day-to-day life. Both planets are in the same southern declination, so their energies are working in harmony rather than opposing each other, and this creates focus, purposeful mental activity. And Venus's parallel to Neptune is when Venus, our values and relationships, is contra-parallel, works the same as an opposition with Neptune, which is all about spiritual connection and dissolution, letting go of boundaries. We have to deal with the delicate balance between earthly love and divine love. So this week aspect, creates tension really between our practical relationship and practical thinking and doing and our idealistic, rational notions and romantic ideas, right? So Venus in Virgo seeks clarity this week and precision in relationships, and Neptune in Pisces dissolves boundaries and invites a transcendent connection, creating a fascinating rhythm where we experience mental clarity and assertiveness, followed by an invitation to surrender and to something that's less defined than our rational mind, our feeling, emotional intelligence, right? And this can be more spiritually fulfilling this week. It's like we've been given a precise map this week, Mercury, Mars in parallel, and then being asked to follow our intuition, which Venus and Neptune's asking us to do. So ultimately, our words can carry extra power, our thoughts can move more quickly, and our communication have a direct, perhaps even more confrontational quality. And this energy can be used for productive problem solving, or could manifest as argumentative tendencies if we don't consciously direct this energy, right? So we have to direct this energy, but if we do, we can open ourselves up, and our thoughts can come and ideas can come quickly, and we can surrender to them. So we can make great change this week if we're open to it. Ultimately, the energy of this week wants us to activate and strengthen from Sunday to Monday this week. So we're talking the 12th and the 13th. We can notice increased mental sharpness, quicker reactions, and more direct communication. And this building energy supports taking intellectual challenges, having important conversations, and making decisions that require both analysis and courage, right? Later on the 13th, when Mercury's Mars parallel becomes exact at 7:19 p.m, this is a powerful window for decisive communication and mental action. The hours surrounding this exact aspect are particularly potent, good for conversations requiring directness, writing that needs to make an impact, and mental work that requires focus and determination. And as this aspect begins to separate late Monday into Tuesday, we simultaneously experience Venus making an exact contra-parallel with Neptune at 8:02 a.m. on the 14th, and this creates a fascinating transition from mental clarity to spiritual openness, from assertive communication to receptive intuition. And Tuesday through to Thursday, the Venus contra-parallel to Neptune dominates the energy, creating a dreamy, intuitive environment, atmosphere that contrasts with the sharp clarity of the early week, right? And during this phase, relationships take on a more nuanced, subtle, low-key quality, with increased sensitivity to subtle energies and unspoken feelings, right? And this is a time when boundaries may feel more permeable, more fixed, when love can transcend and go above ordinary limitations, but also when confusion about our relationships may come, right? So by Friday and Saturday, as the Venus-Neptune aspect begins to separate, we can find ourselves integrating the lessons of both transits, perhaps finding ways to communicate with both clarity and compassion, or making both being discernment and thinking about what we do, making judgments and acceptance to our relationships, just going with the flow. Key October the 13th is when we can have the highest mental clarity and assertiveness of this week, and Tuesday morning October the 14th is when we can be the most spiritual, sensitive, and be willing to let go of boundaries. So it, in summary, is a week of mental focus and directness as we start, then we transition into spiritual openness and sensitivity, and then as the week concludes, it's an opportunity to integrate these apparently opposite approaches into one. And that's the summary version of this week. If that's all you want to listen to, that's it. And as you know, if you listen to me, I'm about to go in depth, looking at each aspect in more depth, giving more pointers, looking at the karmic, esoteric and psychological impact, how it affects each zodiac sign and all that good stuff. So if you want to continue, let's go on. So in terms of the in-depth weekly analysis, Mercury's parallel to Mars really allows us, as I said, to be decisive in our thinking, be quicker with our mental reflexes and responses. It gives us an ability to speak with conviction and authority. It's excellent for, energetic debates, giving us that energy for negotiation and presentations. It can be like higher in our problem solving through direct action, the courage to say what needs to be said, and it gives us the mental stamina, vitality for, doing those complex projects and learning complex things and all of that. And we can just be quicker with the wit and the banter, and clever in our combats in conversations. And negatively though, this can make us more argumentative and aggressive. So we have to sort of speak and think before we speak. That's the one. As if we don't do that, that can lead to regrettable words. We can be more impatient with slower thinkers or detailed explanations. There can be a risk of verbal conflicts or heated exchanges. We can also have mental restlessness and difficulty concentrating, and we can just have the tendency to interrupt others or dominate conversations, and this can lead to harsh criticism or cutting remarks. So the best use of this energy is to get things done, channel into productive debates, assertive presentations, and doing the things that need you to have mental courage. Write that difficult email you've been putting off, have that honest conversation with your boss, or dive into research that requires mental energy and stamina. Just remember to pause before speaking when emotions run high, as your words can carry extra punch right now, so use them wisely rather than as weapons. And the Venus contra-parallel to Neptune, what is this? It brings tension, between practical, our practical love needs and our romantic ideas, highlighting the difference between fantasy and reality in relationships, and it opens up channels for spiritual love and creative inspiration, so we can have a deeper spiritual connection in relationships. We can just be more creative, have more compassion and empathy for others and ourselves. It gives us the ability to see the divine in everyday love. Our intuition about our relationship dynamics and experiences and problems can be higher. It allows us and gives us opportunities for healing through forgiveness and just access to unconditional love and acceptance, But negatively, as I said, we can have confusion about fantasy and reality. We can idealize partners and situations, ignore red flags, be open to self-deception and manipulation from others and deception from others. We can feel disillusioned when our reality don't match our dreams. We can escape in relationships and just can have difficulty setting healthy boundaries, and we can just become like a victim in love and just feel like we have to be a martyr in love while it's love, and I have to let them be toxic to me because if that's what true love means, and it's not what true love means. We have to make sure we care of ourselves and have self-worth, and people that say that their lovers shouldn't mess with our self-worth and energy, and if they do that and they keep on messing with your boundaries, sometimes you just have to let them go. Sometimes you can't be with the people we love, so ultimately Venus's contra-parallel to Neptune is a magical energy for creative projects, spiritual practices, and deepening our compassion in our relationships, as well as our self-worth, respect, care, forgiveness. Increases our intuition to understand the deeper currents, the subtle words we don't say in body language, that can help us ground ourselves in practical realities and see the writing on the wall, right? And if you feel confused about someone's intentions, trust your gut, but also pay attention to their actions rather than just their words. This is great for meditation, acts of service that come from genuine love rather than obligation. So in terms of weekly energy patterns, it increases our mental clarity and ability to think clearly and precisely. It increases our courage to confront difficult conversations directly. We can be more productive in our problem solving abilities, especially when we're under pressure. Creative inspiration can combine practical skill with spiritual insight this week, and our increased intuition about people's hidden motivations or unspoken feelings can be really high this week, giving us the capacity to see beyond surface appearances in relationships and mix analytical thinking, so our rational logical side, with compassionate, intuitive, emotional understanding, intelligent understanding, right? And increases the energy for our intellectual plans and verbal expressions this week, giving us the chance to transcend, go above connection in otherwise orderly interactions. And we can have the inspiration to express feelings with both care and poetry, In terms of the challenging effects of this week, we can, have a tendency, as I said, to be argumentative or combative in communication, risk of speaking impulsively without considering the consequences, so we must do that. We need to prevent ourselves from mental and physical burnout from overthinking or overdoing, over-exercising, from Mars, really giving us that extra energy in our motivation drives, our sex drives, exercise drives, thinking drives, relationship drives, that we can overdo it, right? There can be a confusion between genuine intuition and wishful thinking in relationships. There can be difficulty telling the difference between realistic expectations and fantasy. We can have disappointment when idealized visions of others meet reality. We can feel scattered in our energy and unable to focus due to Neptune's influence this week. We can run to overindulging in drugs, alcohol, and toxic relationships, or doing anything like Netflix and chilling, binging shows. All of that to avoid the practicalities as well, because it brings desire to, escape rather than face problems this week. And there can just be a tension between our desire for clarity and acceptance of things that are kind of ambiguous and unclear, and we can just be wanting to escape, as I said. So this can make us ignore those red flags, and we can be open to deception and manipulation. So be careful with your money and other resources this week. And we can just struggle to integrate practical responsibilities with spiritual goals this week as well. So, journaling, strategic planning can really be our friends this week as well. We need to just make sure we try and build our patience, and walk away from, arguments. Use this energy to write important things, have straightforward discussions that you've been avoiding, doing intellectual research and things like that. Use it productively rather than negatively, right? Open your heart up to experiencing love and beauty, and remember, some things need to be felt and not analysed this week. And think of yourself as both the scientist and the mystic this week, both the strategic thinker and the dreamer this week, allowing yourself to go beyond appearances and connect on a soul level as well. So ultimately this week is all about moving between logical and intuitive thinking, and we have the opportunity to speak our truth with courage while remaining open to the mysteries that lie beyond our current understanding. So in terms of how this energy influences our career and business life as well, we can have more sort of like workplace communication and strategic thinking, and we can present our ideas with confidence, having those difficult conversations with colleagues or bosses and cutting through confusion to find practical solutions. It's a dead good time for negotiations, as I said, presentations, or any situation where you need to make your case clearly and assertively this week, because our thinking can be quicker and our words can carry more impact. It's best to use this power wisely rather than becoming argumentative or pushing, respect other people's boundaries. And Venus's Neptune Contra-Parallel allows us to sort of really work on workplace relationships and values this week. We can notice tension between practical considerations, what makes logical sense, and intuitive guidance, what feels right on a deeper level. And this transit can be particularly significant for creative professionals or those working in helping professions where empathy is best. Pay attention to subtle dynamics in professional relationships during this time. We may become aware of unspoken tensions or possibilities that weren't previously apparent. Just be careful not to project idealised qualities onto colleagues or situations, as Neptune can sometimes create a rosy future that obscures reality. So, ultimately, we may have impatience with colleagues who process information more slowly, but we need to have patience, confront challenging workplace conversations directly rather than gossiping and backbiting, right? And listen to your intuition intuitive hunches about workplace situations while verifying the facts, and create space for both analytical problem solving and creative inspiration in terms of friendships or relationships. As I said, friendships as well can benefit from honest communication, balanced with compassion. It supports clearing the air in friendships where misunderstanding have created distance, and this energy helps us to be more clearer in our thoughts and feelings, rather than letting resentment simmer beneath the surface. Be mindful of tone and timing. What feels like healthy directness may come across as aggression to more sensitive friends. The key is channeling the Mars energy into constructive rather than destructive communication, and it really, because of the Neptune Venus energy, can create times of soul level understanding between friends, but also situations where boundaries become blurred or expectations become unclear. So we have to be clear with our expectations, right, and careful about financial matters with friends during this time, because the Venus Neptune influence can create confusion around shared resources or responsibilities. Similarly, be cautious of friends who present themselves as victims or rescuers, as these dynamics can be amplified now. So, set clear boundaries while maintaining compassion. Pay attention to intuitive feelings about friends' hidden motivations or needs. Be cautious of idealising new acquaintances or overlooking red flags. Create space for both meaningful conversations and spiritual connection in friendships. So in terms of self-partnership, it gives us the opportunity to deepen our relationship with ourselves. It supports honest self-assessment and decisive action towards our personal goals. It's a brilliant time to have, frank, honest conversations with yourself about areas where you've been procrastinating or avoiding the truth. Journaling is particularly powerful under this influence, as the combination of Mercury's analytical clarity and Mars' courage helps you cut through self-deception and name what you truly think and feel. You might find yourself writing with unusual directness about your experiences and desires. Venus's contra-parallels Neptune on October the 14th. The focus changes towards self-compassion and spiritual connection. It invites us to balance self-improvement efforts with unconditional self-acceptance, and we might experience tension between the critical voice that notices our flaws, which is Venus and Virgo, right, and the compassionate awareness that accepts us for exactly where we are at and who we are, which is Neptune and Pisces. So, if you're self-partnered, it's a lovely week to explore meditation, spiritual practices, creative self-expression that bypasses the analytical mind and taps into the deeper wisdom, allowing yourself to move between structured self-development activities and periods of surrender and flow. And we can use this Mercury-Mars energy for honest self-assessment and decisive personal choices. Journaling about areas where you need to take more direct action. Balance self-improvement efforts with practices that nurture self-acceptance, and explore creative expressions that bypass your inner critic, and notice when perfectionism, represented by Venus and Virgo, undermines your spiritual well-being, So in terms of hookups, as I said, this week brings clarity and confusion to our life and relationships to our inner world. We have to try and be direct in our communication, especially when it comes to our desires and boundaries in hookups, right? And this energy helps us state our needs clearly and assess situations realistically, rather than getting caught up in, haziness, cloudiness, uncertainties, indirectness. And directness can be refreshing in hookup scenarios, right? Where unclear expectations can often create complications. Be mindful that your words may carry more impact than you intend. What feels like straightforward communication to you could come across as blunt or even harsh to others. And Venus's contra-parallel to Neptune can create a dreamy, romantic filter that makes casual relationships feel more meaningful than they actually are. At the same time, it can help us see beyond physical attraction to recognize soul relationships that deserve deeper exploration. Be particularly careful careful about substances when dealing with this influence, as Neptune can cloud judgment and Venus in Virgo may later regret impulsive choices. This is also a time when boundaries can become blurred, so maintaining clarity about your intentions becomes especially important. So notice when you're projecting romantic fantasies onto casual relationships. Be mindful that words carry extra impact under the Mercury-Mars influence, and maintain awareness of the distinction between physical attraction and deeper connection. So in committed relationships, we can have productive conversations about issues that might have been simmering and bubbling beneath the surface. This helps couples or couples or whatever your relationship dynamic is confront conflicts directly rather than avoid difficult and challenging topics. It's a proper good time for relationship problem solving, as you can combine clear thinking with decisive action. However, be careful not to let the Mars energy manifest as impatience or verbal aggression. The goal is productive directness, not winning arguments at all costs. Venus is contra-parallel to Neptune. Relationships can enter a more nuanced sort of low-key territory, and invites couples to balance practical considerations with spiritual connection. You may experience tension between the part of you that wants to analyse and improve relationships, Venus and Virgo, and the part that yearns for transcendence, allowing boundaries to dissolve as you are working in unison with others. It's a beautiful time for activities that nurture both practical and spiritual dimensions of the partnership, perhaps combining honest conversations about household responsibilities, who's not been taking the recycling out and all of that, with shared meditation and creative expression. The challenge is maintaining healthy boundaries while also allowing for mystery and surrender within the relationship. Use the Mercury-Mars energy to confront important relationship issues directly. Balance assertiveness with receptivity in conversations with your partner. Create space for both practical problem solving and spiritual connection. Notice when perfectionism creates unnecessary tension in the relationship. Distinguish between intuitive insights about your partner and projections. So in terms of best weekly actions, what to do with this energy: deal with important communications, create a strategic action plan, practice mindful assertiveness, balance analysis with intuition, clear mental clutter, whether through journaling or mind mapping, spend time in spiritual creativity, practice discernment in relationships, seeing people for who they are clearly rather than what you're projecting them to be, and the idealized qualities you can project onto them. Create daily rituals that honor both structure, routine and surrender, and protect your energy boundaries, Be intentional about who and what you allow into your life, right? And what you do, as we can be more physically porous, absorbing other people's energy, and express appreciation with specificity. So, combine detailed acknowledgement with heartfelt communication. So be like, I like the way that you took the trash out, the recycling out this week, because that made me feel nurtured. For be detailed in why you feel how you feel, So ultimately, it's about taking decisive, clear action in all areas requiring mental care this week, while remaining open to intuitive wisdom that transcends rational understanding. So in terms of the psychological and karmic and spiritual and esoteric interpretation, Mercury's parallel to Mars psychologically supercharges our emotional processes with warrior energy, creating more aggressive thoughts and communication styles. We can find ourselves thinking in terms of winning and losing, with increased mental competitiveness and the desire to prove our intellectual superiority, so we need to watch out for that. Karmically, past life patterns around using intelligence as a weapon or shield surface for healing. The soul lesson involves learning to use mental fire constructively rather than destructively, and developing the ability to be both honest and kind in communication. On the spiritual level, this transit activates the spiritual Warrior archetype, teaching you to fight for truth and justice through conscious communication. Your words become tools for clearing away illusion and inspiring action. And this parallel creates a direct channel between our Mercury consciousness, thought and communication, and Mars energy, action and will, allowing us to become a conscious agent of change through empowered speech. Venus's contra-parallel to Neptune psychologically dissolves the boundaries between love and illusion, creating both beautiful inspiration and confusion and projections in relationships. We can find ourselves swinging between spiritual bias and emotional confusion, with difficulty telling the difference between genuine connection and wishful thinking. This transit brings forward soul memories of spiritual love and divine union, while also highlighting past life patterns of sacrifice, martyrdom or disillusionment in relationship. The lesson involves learning to love with both compassion and discernment. In terms of the spiritual meaning, the divine feminine principle is activated through Neptune's dissolving influence, teaching you about unconditional love, forgiveness and the illusion of separation. This represents initiation into the higher octaves of love, and the contra-parallel creates creative tension between Venetian love, which is personal affection, and Neptunian love, which is universal compassion, forcing evolution from conditional to unconditional love whilst maintaining healthy boundaries. So ultimately, it's a week of warrior hearts, battling hearts, but standing up for what you believe in, and mystic minds. It's a paradox between mental fire and emotional water, creating a powerful alchemical change process that transforms both how you think and how you love. Mercury Mars energy this week gives us a mental sword, salt clarity, and the Venus Neptune energy dissolves our certainties into compassionate mystery. We're being asked to master two completely different energies this week. First, learning to use our mental fire with precision and purpose, then surrendering to the oceanic depths of spiritual love. It's rather like both being a warrior and a mystic, learning when to fight and when to flow. It's great for defending what you believe in, having those, hard conversations, as I said, cutting through the confusion, and use your weights to uplift people, rather than bring people down this week as well, and allow the heart's wisdom to transcend the mind's certainty. We're going into that intuitive territory where logic matters less than feeling. This is when you may receive profound insights about love, when we open up to our loving side, But remember that you need to stay grounded to avoid getting lost in romantic fantasy. Be prepared for a more evolved way of relating, one that combines mental clarity with spiritual compassion, honest communication with unconditional love. And if you do that, by the end of this week, you'll understand the difference between fighting for love and flowing with love, between speaking your truth and speaking with truth. So trust both your sharp mind and your old soft heart. You'll need both to navigate and deal with this week's powerful transformation successfully, So in terms of soul-searching questions to ask, you can ask, where in your life have you been relying too heavily on analytical thinking at the expense of intuitive knowing, or vice versa? And what would a more integrated approach look like? How might you communicate with both greater directness and greater compassion? What situations in your life could benefit from this balanced approach? In your relationships, where do you need more clarity, and where do you need more acceptance of the mystery? How might these complement rather than contradict each other? So in terms of weekly guidance for the Sun, Moon and Rising signs, Aries, this week your communication and relationship areas of your chart is being activated, so use your power wisely this week rather than impulsively. Confusion and can come into your relationships, and this requires you to be compassionate and speak with clarity and seek, look for clarity and balance assertive truth telling with receptive listening for best results this week. Taurus, with Venus contra-parallel Neptune this week, your ruler, it really brings tension between your work routines and spiritual goals. So it wants you to organise your daily schedule with greater efficiency. You may feel by midweek that you're being pulled to be more practical in your responsibilities and to focus on those, and the longing for something more meaningful can come up as well. So create space for both structured productivity and spiritual connection in your daily routine this week. Gemini, with Mercury, your ruling planet, paralleling Mars, this activates your creativity and self-expression. It supports communicating your ideas with confidence and passion. Creative projects can benefit from this focused mental energy, and the Venus-Neptune energy brings tension between your analytical precision, focusedness this week, and intuitive flow, especially in your creative work. So allow both approaches to inform your processes rather than seeing them as contradictory. Cancer, your home and career are activated this week. So early in the week you may feel, that you have to choose between the needs of your family and your professional responsibilities. Mercury's Mars parallel supports you to be direct in conversations about your, domestic matters this week, and Venus's Neptune energy brings sensitivity and intuition to family relationships. Trust your instincts about what truly matters beneath surface disagreements. And Leo, this week your communication and learning are put in the spotlight, so it's great for studying complex subjects, expressing your ideas persuasively, and the Venus-Neptune energy creates tension between concrete facts and intuitive understanding. This is brilliant for both learning that involves spending time both in your analytical mind and creative imagination. Virgo, with Mercury, your ruler, paralleling Mars, your financial decisions and resource management are highlighted. You'll think quickly and decisively this week about money matters, and Venus in contra-parallel to Neptune creates tension between your practical approach to relationships and the longing for ideal connection. Balance your natural discernment with openness to possibilities beyond your current understanding. Libra, with Mercury in your sign paralleling Mars, can't get my words out, but anyway, this transit brings mental clarity and assertive and communication. You'll express yourself more directly than usual, which might surprise those accustomed to your diplomatic approach. The Venus-Neptune contra-parallel helps you balance this directness with compassion and spiritual perspective. Use your increased communication skills to confront important relationship matters with both honesty and sensitivity. Scorpio activates your unconscious mind and intuition. You might receive important insights about hidden patterns or motivations. The Venus-Neptune contra-parallel blurs boundaries between spiritual awareness and practical service to others. This is a powerful time for healing work that combines psychological understanding with compassionate acceptance. Sagittarius, your social networks and long-term goals are, highlighted for you this week. So it supports direct communication within groups and communities, family, friends, whatever. You can take on a leadership role that requires clear thinking and decisive action. The Venus-Neptune energy brings tension between friendship responsibilities and romantic ideals. Deal with these waters by maintaining clear boundaries while remaining open to meaningful connection. Capricorn, the focus is on your career and public image. So it allows you to present ideas with authority and care. It's an excellent time for professional communications that require impact and clarity, and there's tension between career ambitions and your home and family needs, or it's ideal for you to look for creative solutions that honour both practical responsibilities and emotional well-being. Aquarius, this week, the areas of philosophy and practical learning are activated for you, so it supports you expressing your unique beliefs and perspectives with confidence and clarity. You may find yourself defending your ideas more assertively than usual. Venus-Neptune energy brings tension between concrete facts facts and intuitive understanding for you. This is a fascinating time to explore how different types of knowledge can complement rather than contradict each other. Pisces, with your ruler Neptune, receiving a contra-parallel from Venus. This week brings significant relationship themes to your life, requiring honest conversations about shared resources or intimate matters. By midweek, the Venus-Neptune aspect creates a dreamy atmosphere where boundaries in close relationships may become blurred. Balance your natural empathy with healthy boundaries for best results this week for you. So in terms of mantras, Aries, your mantra is I communicate with both courage and consideration, using my words to create clarity rather than conflict. My directness becomes a gift when tempered with awareness of how others receive my message. Taurus, I create daily routines that honour both practical needs and spiritual goals. My productivity deepens when I allow intuitive wisdom to guide my structured approach to life's tasks. Gemini, I express my ideas with both precision and care, imagination, allowing my logical mind and creative spirit to work in harmony. My communication thrives when I balance clarity with openness to inspiration. Cancer, I deal with family dynamics with both emotional intelligence and clear boundaries. My nurturing nature becomes more effective when I communicate my needs directly while remaining sensitive to others. Leo, I learn through both structured study and creative exploration, honouring both facts and intuition as valid sources of knowledge. My understanding deepens when I spend time with both my analytical mind and my imaginative heart. Virgo, I manage my resources with both practical wisdom and intuitive guidance, creating security that serves a higher purpose. My natural discernment becomes more powerful when balanced with openness to possibilities beyond calculation. Libra, I express myself with both honesty and diplomacy, finding the words that honour my truth while maintaining connection. My relationships thrive when I balance directness with sensitivity to others' feelings. Scorpio, I trust both my analytical mind and my intuitive knowing, allowing them to work in partnership rather than opposition. My perception penetrates deeply when I integrate conscious awareness with unconscious wisdom. Sagittarius, I build communities that honour both shared purpose and individual freedom. My vision inspires others when I communicate with both passionate conviction and respectful consideration of different perspectives. Capricorn, I go after success that honours both practical achievement and spiritual happiness. My leadership strengthens when I balance focus on results with attention to the less touchable, more emotional aspects of well-being. Aquarius, I develop theories that integrate both object analysis and intuitive understanding. My innovative thinking becomes most powerful when I balance intellectual passion with openness to knowledge beyond rational categories. So for Pisces, it's I create relationships that honour both union and individuality, finding the sacred balance between mixing with others and freedom in self-expression. My relationships deepen when I remain clear about where I end and others begin. So in terms of content to create as well, it's best to focus on producing work that balances care with inspiration. It supports content that is direct, clear and action orientated, while Venus Neptune contra-parallel invites more nuanced, subtle and low-key, spiritually informed approaches. Consider creating dual format content that confronts both practical implementation and spiritual meaning. So for example, a wellness creator might combine specific techniques for physical health with the exploration of the mind-body-spirit connection. A business coach might offer concrete strategies for growth alongside reflection on aligning business with deeper purpose. And the early part of the week, Sunday to Tuesday, is ideal for creating content that requires mental focus, strategic thinking and direct communication. So this might include tutorial videos with step-by-step clear instructions, persuasive copy for sales and marketing, analytical breakdowns of complex topics, debate style content, confronting dealing with controversial issues, direct advice or problem solving content. And the middle part of the week, Wednesday to Saturday, supports content that incorporates more intuition, empathy and spiritual perspectives, so guided meditations or visualizations, content discovering, finding the emotional spiritual dimensions of practical topics, art or music that transcends above logical understanding, stories that bring empathy and connection, and content that helps people deal with uncertainty. So ultimately this week, the most powerful content will integrate both energies rather than emphasizing one at the expense of other. Look for ways to mix clarity with compassion, precision with care, poetry with structure, and going with the flow as well. Being more confident, and direct, because Mercury and Mars energy supports this. Don't be afraid to make brave, back-talk, well-researched statements or take clear positions on topics you care about. At the same time, the Venus-Neptune influence reminds us to be sensitive to how our audience receives the message, right? So directness need not come at the expense of empathy. So ultimately, it's about content and helping your audience deal with situations that require both clear thinking and spiritual judgment, how to improve communication in relationship, how we can bring more structure into our life, set better routines, and be more ethical in our choices, how to look after our mind, body and soul, and how our health choices can affect our body and spirit and mind. So ultimately, mixing directness with sensitivity, analysis with intuition, and structure and flow can work good together rather than in opposition this week. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the day-to-day aspects that happen every day of this week, the shorter ones, and how they influence the main energies of the week. So on the 12th of October, nothing happens. On the 13th of October, Venus makes a semi-square to Mars. This lasts for 2 days. Venus is in Virgo and Mars is in Libra. There's a last quarter moon at 7:13, and Mercury's parallel to Mars is exact at 7:20 p.m. and the moon's north node goes direct at 7:21 p.m. as well. So Venus's semi-square to Mars adds motivation and can be more passionate, but it adds to the creative tension this week, and it supports us in facing problems head on, so backing up the main energies of the week. But negatively can add to the impatience and irritability we can feel, and it can add to the clashes in relationships and petty arguments that can happen this week. So the best use of this energy is for creative projects, honest discussions. The last quarter moon helps with self-reflection and tying up loose ends, perfect for letting go of what no longer is working, but it can bring a sense of tension and restlessness as we prepare for the new moon cycle, right? The full moon, the new moon. I think, it's the new moon, right? Anyway, we'll find out next week. And the moon's north node goes direct, so this helps us to focus on our life purpose and make changes so we can align our day-to-day habits with our long-term goals, right? But it can add to us feeling unsettled and like we're at a crossroads, and the threshold of change, being forced to change. The best use of this energy is trust the direction you're being pushed to, even if it feels unfamiliar, So it's a turning point where we can let go of old patterns, right? And it reminds us that we need to be fair and balanced this week in our communication, right? And reminds us not to shy away from tough talks or necessary endings. It brings a day of karmic redirection and assertive communication, ultimately giving us the courage to move forward, and finish what we've started as well. And we can gain karmic clarity about our next steps and the courage to confront persistent issues. But, negatively, we can just feel uncertain. It adds to the misunderstandings, impulsive words and restlessness that can come up, and the frustration with slow progress that can happen this week, right? So the best use of this energy is to trust your instincts about new directions and to channel this excess energy into art, exercise or problem solving, right? The question you can ask yourself today is, where do you let frustration or fear or temptation keep you stuck in old cycles, and how my honest expression set you free. So you could write down one thing you're ready to release, burn or shred. As a ritual, practice assertive kind communication in tricky conversation, and take a walk or do something physical to move like stuck pent up energy. On the 14th of October, the moon enters void of course at 49 minutes past midnight. The moon enters Cancer at 1:29 a.m. The Venus makes an opposition to Neptune at 2:16 a.m. Pluto goes direct at 3:53 a.m. Venus makes a contra-parallel to Neptune at 8:03. Mars makes a sister quadrant to Neptune at 2:28. Venus makes a trine to Uranus at 10 past 3, and Mercury makes a sister quadrant to Saturn at 8:04. So it's a mega day, right? We got so much going on. So let's start with we know that Venus is in Virgo and Neptune's in Pisces, right? We know that Uranus is in Taurus. We know where Venus is. Mercury is also in Libra, and Saturn's in Pisces. So this is a day of mystical crossroads, which is the theme of this week. The moon void of course and going into Cancer allows us to have emotional reset. It's a great time for deep self-care and reconnecting with our home, our psychological or inner home. The early hours of today may feel unsettling, but it's great to nurture ourselves with this moon energy, rest and reflect. Pluto going direct, and I've done a special on Pluto going out of bounds and direct this year, so you can check that out. It's in the playlist. So it just gives us that turning point for transformation, power and deep healing. The stuck energy can finally change, because when Pluto's retrograde, right, we may think of the changes we need to do and know what we need to do, but we may be blocked from making them. So as Pluto goes direct, we can start making those changes if you need to. But if you was born with Pluto retrograde, you may have already started to make these changes, right? So be open to change and let go of what no longer serves you. Negatively, the Pluto going direct can make us feel intense, overwhelmed, and bring up old fears as buried issues come to the surface. Venus's opposition to Neptune adds to the intuition, increased intuition, compassion, empathy, and creative inspiration we can feel, but it also adds to the illusion and confusion, right? So we have to double check those facts. And Mars' sister quadrant to Neptune as well adds to the spiritual motivation and selfless action, but negatively it can drain our energy, cause confusion, and lead to misdirected effort. So the best use of this energy is to be grounded and focused on where you want to channel it, right? Use it to do things for others and be creative. Avoid escaping under this energy. Venus is trying to Uranus can make us feel restless or impulsive in relationships. Be open to trying something new. And Mercury's sister quadrant to Saturn helps with our focus and taking responsibility for our life, and helps us deal with tough conversations, which is good because we need that energy, right? But it can add to the mental heaviness, self-doubt and communication blocks that can come up this week as well. And remember that clarity comes with persistence, so be patient with yourself as you move forward. And because Mercury and Saturn today demand clarity and realism, right? So ultimately, today we can feel drained of energy and lack motivation. We can have communication blocks and self-doubt, and we can feel overwhelmed by change or uncertainty. It can also add to the confusion or disappointment in relationships, but positively it leads to breakthroughs in love, creativity and self-understanding. It helps us to release old patterns and be open to fresh starts, and it can increase our intuition and artistic inspiration, right? The best use of this, we need to be open to new experiences and creative ideas, practice self-care and emotional honesty, let go of illusions. Ask yourself, are you looking for clarity in love and money? And if not, why not? And how can you gain more clarity in love and money? Because this day is helping us do that, and to be disciplined as we ground our dreams into reality, practical action, right? We can ask ourselves, where do you let fantasy or fear of change keep you stuck in old cycles? And how might honest self-reflection today set you free? to integrate all of today's energy, try a new creative or social activity, break your routine, meditate on what you're ready to release, write down one dream or vision, then list a practical step to make it real. On the 15th of October, Venus trines Pluto, and Pluto's in Capricorn, right? And this again allows us to sort of like have magnetic attraction to others. It's powerful for emotional relationships and gives us the ability to heal or change relationships and finances, which is really good. But negatively can add to the jealousy and possessiveness of this week and the intensity of emotions, and we can obsess over what we desire. So the best use of this energy is to use this energy to strengthen relationships, release old baggage, and be open to authentic intimacy. So ultimately, you can feel a need to connect with others passionately and on a soul level, right? And it allows us to renew our sense of self-worth. And letting go of what no longer serves us as well. But it can be hard to let go of the past, right? Because we can have a fear of vulnerability this week, and we can have intense emotions of possessiveness and jealousy as well, which we need to work through. And we can also have obsessive thoughts about love and money as well. So it's best to release old grudges and revenge tactics and limiting beliefs, invest in self-care and personal growth, and channel passion into creative or healing plans, right? And just be open to a renewed sense of self-worth and confidence, and just deepen that intimacy with yourself so you can feel grounded in yourself, right? You can ask yourself, where do you cling to old wounds or fears of intimacy, and how might being open to vulnerability today lead to true transformation? In terms of integrating this energy, write down one fear or limiting belief, burn or bury it as a ritual of release, share a secret, hope or dream with someone you trust, and practice a grounding meditation focusing on your heart and root chakras, right? On the 16th of October, the moon void of course starts and the moon enters Leo. So the moon in Leo increases our confidence, creativity, and brings a desire to shine. It's perfect for self-expression and playful relationships, but negatively can add to the drama of the week, the attention seeking and prideful classes if we're not mindful. The moon void of course is great for self-reflection, right? The question that you can ask yourself is, where do you hide your true self out of fear of judgment, and how might stepping into your authentic light today bring you joy? The best use of today's energy is practice self-acceptance and celebrate your wins. Reach out to inspire or uplift someone else. Lead with warmth and generosity. Start or continue creative projects. Avoid drama and prideful classes. Also avoid overreacting emotionally as well, and try not to look for validation over being authentic as well, and look for validation from within rather than trying to manipulate situations to get it from the external world, right? And just use it to build stronger relationships through open-hearted and honest sharing, and be open to the renewed confidence and enthusiasm that can come today, right? On the 17th of October, the Sun makes a biquintal to the Moon's North Node, and the Sun's in Virgo and the North Node is in Aquarius. Mercury makes a sister quadrant to Neptune at 6:31. The Sun makes a square to Jupiter, and Jupiter's in Cancer, right, and the Sun's in Virgo. The Sun also enters Libra later on in the day, and also there's a balsamic moon as well. So the Sun in Libra makes it a fresh start for balance, harmony, and new relationships as well. So this is really good to resolve any conflicts that the Neptune Venus energy has been causing this week, right? But it can also add to our tendency to avoid conflict and make it tricky for us to commit, and we may ignore red flags and people please as well. So the best use of this energy is to focus on balancing your life and welcome new relationships. The balsamic moon is perfect for release, forgiveness and quiet reflection, and it prepares you for the new lunar cycle, but it can bring up a sense of nostalgia and sentimentalism and endings, making it a bit daunting, making you feel anxious. The best use of this energy is to let go of what's finished and rest before the next chapter. The Sun's bi-quinta to the Moon's North Node motivates our creative insight about our life path, but it may bring odd synchronicities or a sense of being out of step with others. Best use of this energy is to trust your intuition and follow the inspired ideas. Mercury sextil to Neptune increases our imagination and spiritual awareness. It's brilliant for creative work or meditation, but negatively can add to the cloudy, hazy escapism thinking, causing misunderstandings or adding to the misunderstandings really, and make us more open and prone to daydreaming. So just remember to double check important details. The Sun square to Jupiter increases confidence, optimism and the desire need to grow. Big opportunities can appear, but negatively can lead to overconfidence, exaggeration or biting off more than you can chew. Dream big but keep your plans realistic. The Sun bi-quinta to Uranus inspires flashes of genius, originality and the courage to break free from old patterns. Negatively, it can make you feel restless or rebellious and make you crave change for its sake. So the best use of this energy is to be open to new ideas and let your uniqueness shine, and it's all about finding harmony between dreams and reality. Don't get lost in fantasy. Be brave to grow and change, because that's what the Sun square Jupiter wants us to do. And reflect on what you're ready to release and start doing so. Be open to new perspectives, but watch out for being overconfident, having unrealistic expectations, avoiding conflict and indecision, and the restlessness and impatience that can come over routine. You may not want to focus on the practicalities and work and other commitments today. The best use of this energy is to be open to flashes of insights and original ideas, be open to new beginnings in relationships and creative projects, release old patterns and emotional baggage, and really vibe with the opportunities to grow. In terms of the question to ask yourself today, you can ask, where do you project your own needs or fears onto others, and how might being open to shadow work today help you find true balance? On the 18th of October, the Sun makes an opposition to Chiron, and the Sun's in Libra and Chiron's in Aries. The moon void, of course, starts. The moon's north node goes retrograde. Mars makes a trine to the moon's north node. Jupiter enters Cancer. Sorry, I said it was already in Cancer, didn't I? It was in Gemini. And the moon enters Virgo, and Venus makes a quintile to Jupiter. Okay, so the moon void, of course, it's great energy to help us let go of what no longer is needed. The moon's north node going retrograde allows us to realign with our path, but it can add to the uncertainty about our direction. Jupiter in Cancer now done a whole different special on this. You can check it out in the playlist, but ultimately it increases emotional intelligence, brings luck in the home, family and nurturing, but negatively it can add to the moodiness or overindulgence of the week. The best use of this energy is to focus on growth through emotional honesty, family relationships and self-care. The moon in Virgo helps us to pay attention to detail, supports healthy routines and practical care, but it can stir up worry or perfectionism. It's best used to organise, declutter and look after our well-being. The Sun's opposition to Chiron brings healing through honest self-awareness, but it can add to the vulnerability and painful memories that can come this week. It adds to our ability to have self-compassion and empathy for others. This week, Mars is trying to the moon's north node, can add to the restlessness of this week. We can ignore our calling for change as well, but it's best to align our actions and words with our destiny and highest goals, as it gives us the courage to go after our true path. Venus's quintile to Jupiter motivates us being generous. We can be lucky in relationships, especially when it comes to money and expressing love, but negatively we can ignore practical limits and overdo pleasure, overspend on pleasure, So the best use of this energy is to celebrate small wins and share our abundance, So ultimately today is a day of honest self-reflection, and it wants us to grow through love and care and nurture our home, inner and outer. It wants us to trust in our heart's wisdom, be open to new beginnings and the blessings of home, family. And and, you know, be open to emotional healing and release old pain, and the courage to go after your true path, which is the theme of this week. We can have creative breakthroughs and be lucky in relationships if you're willing to go through the chaos that can come this week, right? And allow ourselves to be vulnerable and manage the mood swings that can come up this week, and the overspending and overindulgence, you know, and the restlessness and impatience and the jealousness and obsessiveness that can come up this week. And do not ignore your limits, you know, work within your limits, watch out for burnout, practice self-compassion and honest self-reflection this week, start a new routine, nurture your home environment, take action towards your long-term goals, you know, no matter how small, and celebrate your progress and share your joy with others, you know, and be more creative in your thinking, and your relationships can really deepen through honest serving and nurturing gestures, you know. In terms of the questions to ask yourself: where do you cling to old emotional wounds or emotional trauma, spiritual trauma and stuff? It's a need to let go of your comfort zones and think about, ask yourself, how may, you know, starting to heal some of these areas open you up to healing and set yourself free, you know. And to integrate this week's energy, create a nurturing ritual, cook a favourite meal, tidy your space or spend time with loved ones, write down one old wound you're ready to heal, burn or bury it as a symbol of release, take one brave step towards a goal, you know, no matter how small. So yeah, that's the end of this week's weekly scopes from the 12th to the 18th of October. Yeah, take care and see you next time.